Now, Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to this episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon for this part 2 of a chat with David Coverdale. Now, this isn't the same chat where we did 2 hours and split it up into 2 parts. No, this was a completely new interview done a week later, and we, of course, are discussing the Rock album, a new collection of the group's best rock songs, refurbished, repainted, made sound, whatever. In fact, I'll read from the press release. Revisited, remixed, and remastered. And Alan Niven, like on a previous show with drummer Steve Gorman, David and I spoke about you briefly. He started talking about Love Ain't No Stranger, and I said, "Ooh, my co-host loves that song, Alan Niven." And David said, "The manager?" Yes, the manager, Alan Niven. So first of all, bonjour, how are you?
I am very well. How are you today?
Oh, excellent. Always excellent when you have David Coverdale on. Now, my last interview with David before these last ones, I think dates back to like 2013 or 2014. There was this long gap of releases and greatest hits and box sets and Dave doing all kinds of press, and I just couldn't find the moment, the time, the connection, whatever. And then now 2 in 2 weeks. So there we go. I am satiated and happy. But I will ask you this. On the Steve Gorman interview, or in his book, he talks about, because we were talking about Rick Rubin last week, he talks about how Rick Rubin and Def Jam failed to pick up a option for a new album. And of course, with David Coverdale, before last time, we talked about how you toured with Great White. Did any of your bands ever have that sort of fortuitous luck where a record company failed to pick up an option or miss something that ended up benefiting the band or a band?
Well, funny you should ask that. In the late 80s, Great White was signed to Capitol Records. And our contract was a 2+2+2. In other words, they committed to making 2 records, and then they had an option to pick up the next 2 records, and then they had an option to pick up the next 2 records. And that'll tell you something. That'll tell you that was a good contract, because ordinarily a label would usually go one at a time and not have to commit to 2 records on each option. The other thing you'll notice is that there were 6 records, not 7. And 7 was the industry standard. They'd stick you for 7 records. So there you've got 2 indicators right there that contract with Capitol was really good. And there's a little bit of a story to that, because that particular contract was negotiated way earlier in 1983 when the band was signed by EMI USA, and EMI USA really wanted the band. So we got a really good contract for a new artist. It was very strongly in the band's favor compared to other bands. And when we got into this interesting situation that, having been dropped by EMI USA, that Capitol now wanted to re-sign the band a year and a half later, and we had a track that was all over every rock and roll station in the LA, KNSE, KLOS, KMET. KMET played Face the Day for 16 weeks in heavy rotation. Unheard of. Also unheard of was the fact that it was an independent record and I'd done it on my own and promoted it on my own. And KLOS and KMET were notorious for only playing tracks from bands who were signed to major labels. So there was definitely a reemergence of interest and momentum for the band. And I stuck my head into the business affairs office when we were going through the process of, well, now we've got to get a contract for Capitol. And I talked to a guy called Kevin Breen, and I chanced my arm because apparently I used to do that a little bit back in the day. I looked at Kevin and I said, Kevin, we don't need to do the contract. We don't need to form a contract. And he looked at me and he said, why not? I said, we already have one. Let's just take the old EMI USA contract, update it, and use that and get going. And he went and talked to Don Zimmerman. And to my amazement, they came back and said, yeah, we'll do that. We'll just reactivate the old contract. So we were on a 2+2+2 and decent royalty rates. And after Twice Shy was released, I got a phone call from the band's attorney saying that he had received a phone call from Business Affairs in Capitol in an absolute panic. Because when you call your option, you have a window of time in which to do it in writing. And if you don't call for your option within that window of time in writing, then the band is free and clear. And the band's lawyer is calling me up and saying, you're free and clear from Capitol, and you're approaching 3 million sales on the current album. What do you want me to do? And it was a moment of ethics. And I sat there and I thought, well, if I tell the attorney we're free and clear and to act on that, I know somebody who's going to lose his job, and he'll probably never get another one in the industry. And he did something really cool for me by going with that contract in the first place. So my instruction to Mario Gonzalez was have him backdate the overcall in writing, send it to me, and I'll sign off on it. I'm not going to send that guy around the U-bend. And that's what we did. We accepted the option, and on we went with Capitol. Of course, no favor goes unpunished. The Zimmerman went, Berman went. We ended up with Hale Milgram. In a cold, brutal world, it might have been better to move on to another label. But it would have been an unethical and immoral thing to do, and dishonest. And apart from that, we had a lot of relationships with people within the Capitol structure globally at that point. We had personal relationships with the people who went into the local radio stations and promoted our records to those radio stations. And there was also that aspect to it too. It's like, maybe the devil we know is better. And when it comes down to it, the ethical thing is to just backdate it and say, you took us to the dance. We're at the dance with you now. We're going to stay at the dance with you.
What was that overall then a smart move? Because you have Guns over at Geffen. You have I don't know where was Havana Black in all of this. What label did they end up being with?
Capitol.
Was it strange for you as a manager to have relationships with different labels for different bands, or is that just sort of standard practice?
A little bit of standard practice. There was a record I made with a guy called Michael Thompson, who is one of the top session guitar players in LA, still to this day. An extraordinary player. And I was going to put him on a new label that was being formed by Universal that was going to be called, funnily enough, Uni. And I got called into Geffen, and Rosenblatt and Zutau beat up on me horribly, saying, why are you going to take this to Uni? You're working with us with GNR. We want the record. Tom wants the record. Put it on Geffen. And it was hard for me to say no, because we were at a dance with Geffen on GNR, and solid relationships, solid achievements. It was impossible for me to refuse. And then Geffen fucked the record up. And I had the infuriating moment of having a lunch with Geffen where he had the gall and the balls to sit opposite me. He was screaming about something else as well at the time. He said, I did you a favor. I made you a record for your MTV band, and I did you that favor. And I'm sitting there looking at him going, you what? Your fucking company bullied me to get it onto your label, and then you fucked it up. I mean, shit happens.
Oh, that's great. But
in terms of being a smart thing, at the end of the day, you go to bed alone and you wake up alone. And I like the fact that I have a clear conscience and that I made the right decisions from a basis of ethic when I had to make decisions that involved ethic. And that is important to me. And that's something I will do for myself every time.
So the question for me then is, why was Great White then never signed to Geffen? I mean, Geffen was getting everybody, Whitesnake, Guns N' Roses, Aerosmith, etc. Why did they never say, hey, Great White sold 3 million records. They're managed by the guy who manages our, hey, come on over. Why was that never extended?
Well, at the point where the auction, where Capitol failed to call on the auction, I kept that as very discreet information. I talked to the band about it and told them why the decision was being made the way it was. The band's lawyer knew about it, and that was about it. Because again, if it had come out and been a big story, Kevin Breen would have lost his job. And Kevin Breen did a huge solid by reinvigorating a contract for us that if we had started from scratch, we wouldn't have had such a good contract. So it was the right thing to do.
It certainly was. And who was that guy we spoke about last week that you really didn't want to be on a label with? Not the guy who was
Gary Gersh.
Gary Gersh. Oh, there we go. I just wanted to get Gary Gersh back in there because I know how much you love when we bring him up. He is absolutely your favorite person, right there with Rick Rubin. If there was a part, yeah. If you had a party and Rick Rubin, Gary Gersh, and John Kolodner were there, how much fun would you have that night?
I'd be practicing what we might call social distancing.
Only 6 feet, or would it be more like 666 feet?
It would be a minimum of 12, because when somebody coughs and splutters, particles travel for at least 12 feet. So I'd be at least 12 feet away.
Oh, that would be one hell of a party, let me tell you. Anyway, speaking of a party, it is always a party to speak to Sir David Coverdale. Mr. Coverdale. I am going to refer to him as Mr. Coverdale for the rest of my life. There are certain...
You might be able to comprehend this now, but I've always thought of David as the Richard Burton of rock and roll because of his accent, his articulation, his eloquence, and his diction. And just in my mind, I kind of think of him as the Richard Burton of rock and roll.
He really is. And also, he's got an incredible memory. We started talking about a couple of songs that, random Whitesnake songs, and he started telling me these stories about them. It's like, oh my, like super recollection. Anyway, here he is, the one, the only, Mr. Coverdale. We are speaking with the legendary vocalist David Coverdale. The new rock album comes out on June 19th, and as we said in the previous interview, Dave, I've had a chance to hear it.
Yeah, sorry.
See, we're doing this so much now.
I've known grown roadies rip their own heads off rather than call me Dave. But go on.
Well, it's just because we're doing this so often that I figured we could go to a more familiar petit nom. But no, I'm kidding.
I'll call you Mitt. I'll call you Mitt then.
Just don't call me Michel. As long as you don't call me Michel, we're good.
No, well, maybe bon chance.
Maybe not. But
all right.
So we talked about the rock album and the fact that some of these songs were getting a fresh coat of paint. All of them. And by the way, they sound great. The video for Still of the Night was put out recently. The repainted Still of the Night was put out recently. Man, this stuff is good. And I'm telling you, I've got this 320 song Whitesnake playlist in my phone. So I know all the intimate details of these songs and the rock album. Man. So let's pick up on that. But we also had this blues album. I'm curious about this blues album that's coming out in February.
Well, we can, now we've affected this fabulous brotherly cross-border universal friendship. We can do this more often if you want. It's not exactly like I'm preparing to go on tour, so there's much more time. Although we are very busy right now, currently assembling the Restless Heart box set, which I think will be for Christmas next year. And the elements in that are as tasty, if not tastier. The pre-production stuff, what we call the evolutions, is even better. We have a guy called Professor Tom Gordon works with us. He's a professor at UNR, University of Reno. And we've been working with him since he was an intern at 17 or something. Now he's like 105 years old or something. But he does incredibly caring, sensitive work on the evolution. So we are pretty busy doing stuff in this appalling downtime. But, as we discussed before, the consistency was very necessary with having such a long career, working with so many different people, both in the technical side and the performing side. I wanted to ensure that the legacy of Whitesnake had a consistency, a sonic consistency, which was appropriate for this time in our lives. And hopefully will be for, forever. I don't think I want to go back and repaint them in my 80s, So this has been a labor of love, fulfilling a dream, as I think we discussed before. And it's, I think, using some of that, the globally famous, internationally famous songs like Still of the Night and Judgment Day, all of these songs are going to, this Good to Be Bad album, Forevermore album, but working with small independent companies, which was a boon for a classic rock band, they didn't really have the international imprint to be able to get these albums, for instance, in my adopted country, United States of America. So a lot of these fabulous hits, as it were, are hopefully going to introduce people or reintroduce people to the strength of the songs from the 6 or 7 albums that we're drawing from.
They really are. You did mention the evolutions on these box sets. The one thing on the box sets that I love the most are all these monitor mixes. To me, and this is going to sound strange, but I like that raw sort of 4 on the floor kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do you exactly define these monitor mixes, and what can fans who don't really know? Because you listen to "Deeper the Love," and I'm looking at one right here, private, not private number. That's from the other Parking Ticket, and so.
Oh, that was with for
Phil Collins. Yes, but it's in my playlist because I'm a completist.
Well, he wanted to do. It's so funny. I kept the Purple album so under wraps that even somebody as close as Phil. And Joe and I are email pals on a daily basis, but he wanted me to do Mistreated, and I couldn't say, well, I'm actually redoing that shit now. So let me suggest William Bell and Judy Clay's. I'm a huge soul fan, as you know, and a beautiful song from the 60s is that Private Number, and it worked out perfect for Debbie and me, I think. And it shows a different side to Phil, which I thought was cool. But anyway, go on. We digress.
Well, we digress, but talk to me about these monitor mixes. Where do they come from? How do they differ from what the final versions are? I mean, are they just not mastered? What makes them a monitor mix?
No, they are stuff that you take away with you if you run out of studio time for a particular period to review, to make sure that all the elements that you wish to achieve are there. For instance, I was listening recently to "Crying," because I know it's a personal favorite of yours.
It is,
and
totally.
It's an epic of the Tom Gordon is edited together of Adrian and I sitting in my writing room at my lakeside home. And it just develops into this huge symphonic power epic blues. But we had to go through that initial period to get there. Now, listen, under no circumstances am I comparing our work to that of Picasso, but it's well recorded that Picasso would start a painting. And if you buy a Picasso, you may have actually 6 paintings behind what he ended up with, what he signed off on. He'd paint over stuff. And I think that's the best analogy I can make. You start off with a particular, like, for instance, the song Anything You Want was a song I'd started called Red Light, Green Light. And that's going to be on the Restless Heart box set. It's really fun stuff. I'm complimented consistently through social media on the content of the box sets we do. I don't think anybody does anything quite as concentrated and as concise and showing people how people were absolutely blown away at the different lyrics on Is This Love, from the 87 evolutions. And this one is just glorious. You've got me jamming with those 2 amazing girls, Maxine Waters and Beth Anderson. It's just a great journey. And this time it'll be including a lot of behind the scenes video, which we found a restoration app which can improve the quality, even though in those days we were using the finest, 8mm or Super VHS, if you remember. But with everybody having high def 4K LED screens, pixelation's an issue, on a larger screen. So we're working everything we can to get audio the best it can be, and also video. And I hope you noticed the difference in Still of the Night.
I did.
When you saw the HD version. I got to tell you, I'd never seen, even though I edited the thing with Marty Kalner, I can't remember seeing the end of my mic stand at that opening scene. The microphone legs?
Yeah.
I went, holy God. Yeah, I'm just standing there, obviously grabbing my penis. But if you see the high definition, you go, oh, it's his mic stand. Those are the little moments that are worthwhile, all the sweat and tears,
Of course. And of course, you've got the slow and easy a cappella version on one of these box sets, which is fantastic. Last time.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I have rock and roll women going into the slow and easy a cappella, then to slowpoke music monitor mix. It's a perfect blend. Last time out, we were talking. You said that you didn't own the rights to the first album, so Trouble, Love Hunter, Ready and Willing.
No, I get my publishing
Right.
from there, and the same with Deep Purple. None of the artists who created those albums from 1974 on have any say in however they're packaged, however low they go scraping the barrel in order to put out. There's never a request for. I think the last thing I did was cooperate on the box of Snakes. And there was part of me felt, that's it. I've done the best I can. They need to be remastered. But honestly, I'm not even sure if the 24 tracks still exist.
Right.
I know Bernie told me he's got 1 or 2 of them, the sneaky little bugger. But there's nothing we can do with them. We don't own them. It's that simple. The album, Ready and Willing, I think Live in the Heart of the City and Come and Get It, was sold to Mirage Records, Lock, Stock and Barrel, without my knowledge. We only found that out like 5 or 6 years ago. So I think there's a company, actually a Canadian company, that bought them, which, we don't get. I just get my publishing money from these things, and whatever record royalties are kind of negligible, sadly, but. I have an idea of how to promote those songs. It's some super, super stuff. And a lot of people, certainly European, where we started, love and treasure the early memories, which I do too. But really, I can't do these box sets. I have no access to the tapes. They're not mine. I took over. I sued for release, management divorce, in time for me to be able to record Slide It In, which became the first multi-platinum Whitesnake record. It was most unfortunate. And everyone thinks, of course, we were together forever. But it was only 3 years. My contract called for 2 original studio albums a year.
God.
Consequently, I was a busy boy touring and writing.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that in a second too. But with the whatever you call it, the Digital Millennium Act or whatever, do you not after 30 years get those back, or because somebody else bought? No,
we've been in litigation for several years and signed off on it last year. There's British contracts are as concrete as you can get, as dinosaur as you can get, but that's it. They're gone. You know.
Oh, that's too bad.
And I'm very sad. I'm very sad about it, but I would love, I know through social media how much people would love to have them. And you know me, I'm an artist who likes to fulfill. The whole reason of me getting back in the studio was when I was running the BBS on Whitesnake.com. And I'd say, okay, after all these years, what the fuck do you still want from me? And they came in, a greatest hits live album, a new studio album, and something else, and a video. And I delivered all those things within 12 months. So that was, I try to give you what you want. It's that simple. But there are certain obstructions and obstacles that even I can't overcome.
Well, listen, you're giving me a Restless Heart box set, so I'm good to go. I think that album is so overlooked, and it should have been massive.
The circumstance was, if you remember, I don't know whether we spoke about it, but there'd been a distinct change in the dynamic. A lot of the people I worked with so successfully at Geffen Records were let go. And a lot of, I don't know whether you go back this far, but record companies were sort of these big, huge, overtly corporate companies, which when I started, I'd be dealing with executives who were musicians, who'd had a kind of epiphany going, well, I'm not going to be successful as a musician. Maybe I can get a job in a record company and still be involved with music because I love music. And that's my background, my early days with talking with guys who were musically oriented. I still have a couple of them who I treasure, but mostly Geffen changed it for all these young, hotshot Bachelor of Arts graduates or whatever that had no connection to the street, certainly no connection to what. I remember sitting on a roof with Jimmy Page, a roof in the Bellage. It used to be the Bellage Hotel in West Hollywood, is now the London. And Jimmy and I were sitting on the roof with one of the new young executives who leaned over patronizingly, tapping me on the knee and saying, things have changed since you were at MTV, David.
Oh, God, MTV.
But things have changed, in 12 fucking months? So I refuse to give them the Restless Heart album. And so it's going to be new for a lot of people. The way we've got it now with we've discussed before, Joel's come in and beefed up, or in your language, birthed up the guitars. And Derek Sherinian has just put the John Lord seal of approval, scorching Hammond. It's like a beautiful hybrid of early, middle, and leaning towards like the slip of the tongue style. I'm thrilled with it. Oh. So Michael and I, Mikey Mack, who you've spoken to before, and I were tweaking a little bit yesterday. Felt like one of Adrian's solos was a little soft, so before it's mastered, we were tweaking that. But yeah, it's going to freak you out because there's some super stuff. All of these kind of demos and things like this, Mitch, there was never any intentions of releasing these things. This is just how it's unfolded.
I can't wait. Now, the question is do I add to the 320 song playlist or do I replace the ones that are already there? One thing
I think we'll be changing them. Go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say one thing I wanted to ask that I didn't get to the last time was about, of course, Here I Go Again, Crying in the Rain and Sliding. Now, I don't want the story about why we recorded. We know it was for the American market, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know that story. But what I wanted to know is, at the time of choosing those songs to re-record, were there other songs that you had tried out, say, for example, Ready and Willing or something, and it just wasn't working, or did
No.
you? No. So it was only these three. No, these are
no. And my writing partner for that project, John Sykes, was adamantly against it. He wanted to do Crying in the Rain because we changed it so much and made it a feature for both him and for Cozy in those days, that symphonic centerpiece. So it really turned it into the chariot race from Ben-Hur, the way we were performing it. So we were excited to do that. And Geffen said, you guys have a great song, which was never fully exploited. We want you to re-record it. It did not come from us. We had You're Gonna Break My Heart Again and Looking for Love, which I still feel is one of my favorite Whitesnake epics. And that wasn't on the US album. It was on the UK album.
Yeah, why wasn't it on the US album? Because I literally didn't hear about that song until about 10 years after.
Thank the bearded wise one. Although I must confess, Here I Go Again did then and continues to be the most successful song in the Whitesnake canon. It's huge globally and still resonates very significant monies. It's one of the first songs that sync licenses come in for. It's amazing. It's got a life of its own, considering it was about my breakdown of my first marriage, as was Crying in the Rain, by the way. But so there was no intent on our part. Sykes and I were absolutely thrilled with the songs that we'd written for a new album. So when the Here I Go Again came, it just took us, what do you call it? A curveball, as they say. And I had to replace John's solo because it was definitely not one of his better solos. And I wanted to feature that on the last box set. And I'm afraid Keith Olsen or one of his engineers had erased it, which is the primary rule in the studio is you don't erase anything. And certainly not without discussing it with me. That was, it was very disappointing because I wanted to feature that on the bonus tracks.
Okay, so there wasn't like 10 of these done. You mentioned Keith Olsen quick.
No. And the other thing was one of the biggest disappointments and compromises, I think, was on the Slip of the Tongue album when I designed the set for like a 21st century blues band for Judgment Day. That was the first song we wanted to go with. And literally, I was finishing off mixing at the record plant in Los Angeles. And I had the three top guys from Geffen, my former manager, who I miss desperately, Howard Kaufman, who passed away 3 years ago. All of these executives came in to say, we feel that Fool for Your Loving should be the first song. I was going, oh my God, because they thought lightning would strike twice, and I'm going, no, please. And I've never heard my band so demoralized as when I phoned them to say they don't want to go with Judgment Day. And I think it changed the whole energetic appearance of what was going on. Like, as if, I think what John and I felt on 87 doing Here I Go Again, Crying in the Rain was so dramatically different and epic, but Here I Go Again is in essence the same, just played with. I never really had a full complement of musicians doing the Saints and Sinners album, so a lot of it feels disjointed to me, sadly. The songs are great, but so. And then, of course, there's no denying how amazingly successful it is, and continues to be. It's an evergreen, according to George Harrison. God bless him.
An evergreen. Listen, I love all the versions.
The impression is that you don't have as much original material as you should. I come from that age when it was called progressive music. You had to seem to be making progress, and revisiting old hits or whatever was not seen as progressive. So that's a mindset that was mine. But I swear to God, it's the only song I can follow it in concert with is Still of the Night. It's the only one.
Such a great song.
It's so big globally, and it's a beautiful version. We've remixed it. You're going to hear that the week the Walk album is released. Next week, we're releasing Love Ain't No Stranger, the high def version, slightly tweaked again, but the video is great. We found this restoration stuff. It's very expensive and very painstaking for my guy Tyler Bournes to go through, but man, it's really cool. It's really, really cool.
You know what? I'm gonna.
So you have 2 more videos to come before the release of the rock album.
I'm gonna ask a question for my co-host. I do this show with Alan Niven, who used to manage.
Oh, who's that? What's that? Oh, yeah, with Alan Niven, the manager.
Yeah,
I haven't seen him for a lifetime.
Yes, he's on the front of all these shows. We do talk-ups after, and he was telling on the last episode about how great White and Whitesnake toured, but he did say...
That's right. That's how I knew him first.
Right, and that's how he said... But he said that Love Ain't No Stranger is his absolute favorite Whitesnake song, point final, no discussion. And now you said that you have this HD version coming out. What can you tell me about that song in terms of how did it sort of come about, and what does it mean to you? Because it really is, to me, one of the defining songs. I know we say "Here I Go Again," but "Love Ain't No Stranger." I mean, that's as pure Whitesnake as Whitesnake can be.
It's huge. Thankfully, it's another song of the personal favorite of the Whitesnake choir. They sing it with me. It's an extraordinarily emotional experience every time. It's also, tell Alan, it's also Cozy Powell's favorite, God rest his soul. In fact, that's heartbreaking to have to follow names with that. Cozy Powell's favorite song from the side of the album was Love Ain't No Stranger. That song came about, and the first person I played it to was Mick Ralphs of Dadco.
Oh, wow.
He'd popped over to jam with us. Yeah, we were rehearsing at John Lord's estate at that time, God rest his soul. And I called his estate Shagham Hall, or whatever, kind of one of those naughty Coverdaleisms. And Mick lived close by, and he'd come over. We were dear friends, a beautiful soul. And I said, here, what do you think? You know, the guys took a break or whatever, and he and I were just talking. I said, Mick, can I play you something? See what you think. I haven't played it to the band yet. And I played him the intro, and he went, oh, David, you got to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. And he strapped a guitar on and stuff. And then I brought Mel Gallion, remember, from Trapeze?
Oh, yeah.
A beautiful soul. God rest his soul. Fucking. But Mel came in, and we were jamming away. He was so nervous. He actually... he was so nervous to write with me. He brought me 2 pieces of music that he'd written with his brother that I was completely unaware of. So I'd finished writing these songs when he you know, we got on very, very well. But when he owned up, I went, oh my God, you better clear this. We can't take these off the album. You got to clear this with your brother. You know, I said, this is on you, Mel. Forgive me, but I thought these were new pieces of music. But Mel and I sitting down, he was the one who came up with the first chord of the chorus, going to G from all of this beautiful ascendant riff, the verse stuff. I had the verses and stuff, and he came in with a chord. So beautiful. Yeah, it's one of my personal favorites too. And I love the remix.
Oh, the remix, the rock album is great, and I'm telling you, and like Alan said, we're very, very curious about this blues album because I just want to know what the track listing is. I want to know how it's put together. But before
You're not getting them yet. You're not getting the track listing yet. That's another show.
Hey, another show.
In between that, you got Whitesnake, the love songs. Well, not the love songs, just Whitesnake love songs. That's going to be October. And literally, we've just finished editing. Whitesnake fans will know that I was planning a video for a ballad called Easier Said Than Done, way back when, after Love Will Set You Free. And the first edit I got, we did that really early in the morning. And some of my boys, we were in a casino in Tahoe, and some of my boys, unfortunately, spent the night carousing. And there was a lot of footage that wasn't over complimentary. So I tried a couple of edits and I went, fuck it, can't do it. So it was destiny. So now we have a new one, which we'll be featuring closer to October, which I'm utterly thrilled with. It really does justice to the song. So that's cool. Oh. But I can't go over, I'll get into trouble with rhino if I start talking about projects for next year when we have something so immediately forthcoming, Mitchell.
Yes, and of course, love will set you free.
Baby, Michel Monbel.
Oh,
Yeah, I know.
that's painful.
No, I know. Well, you deserve one.
It's painful. I will ask you this. On Twitter the other
Yes.
day, I posted about the Reading Festival, and you replied to it. And I wanted to ask you because it was fascinating. You have Whitesnake at the top of the bill, and you have Tigers of Pantang debuting John Sykes that night. You have Girl on the bottom of the bill, and Def Leppard, who of course Phil Collin goes over to Def Leppard later, and you've got Iron Maiden on top of the bill, and you've got Samson below and Bruce Dickinson. It was almost as if, you know, it was like baseball with all the major league teams scouting the minors.
Interesting. No, it was 3 amazing days. I'll tell you who was the highlight, though, other than having a great deal of fun, was Slade. Somebody dropped out at the last minute. I think it might have been Ozzy. I'm not sure. And my agent, Rod McSween, said, David, what do you think about Slade? I said, I think fucking Slade would be a great festival act. And it was everybody's going, oh my God, fucking Slade. And they came on and they slayed the crowd. And I took them after that. I took them on a big European tour. And we had just a blast together. Super guys. Noddy, great singer. He's the guy I recommended to Angus for AC/DC after Bonds lost initially. But of course, Brian's an old mate from way back, you know. But but it was fascinating. Bit showy. We got 5 or 6 maroon, or it's close to. What the hell? It was 6 Rolls Royces. No, the maroon ones was a Deep Purple thing. 6 Rolls Royces, and we had those kind of diplomat little tri-shaped, you know, banners that you stick on the front of the wheels with the original Whitesnake, retro snake as we call it, logo. So it was great. We get there, and a beautiful tech we had, Rhodey, ZZ McGill, beautiful Scots guy, another one who sadly passed. He said, oh, David, there's a bit of a problem. I said, what is it? He said, Britt Eklund's in your dressing room. I said, what's the fucking problem? So she was seeing, I think, the singer with Girl.
Yeah, Phil Lewis. They got married.
And I walked in, I said, I'm afraid you guys have got to get out, like, now. And Phil Collin came up and said, I'm so very sorry. I knew this was wrong. Because I had all the booze in my room. You know, that's why Miss Eklund felt entitled to go in and help herself. So, but Phil and I have maintained a fantastic friendship and mutual respect for many years. He's a lovely, lovely guy, and very gifted, very talented. I love seeing him stretch out with his solo stuff too. But yeah, so we had a blast on both. I think the first one we introduced Ian Pace to the crowd, who just went batshit. It looked like I had some kind of master plan of reforming Deep Purple, but really under my own steam, which was not the case.
Such a great festival, and I wish they would do them more. Can we talk Coverdale-Page at all?
Yeah, let's have a go.
Let's go with the easy stuff first. What was the first meeting with Jimmy? You know, where did David Coverdale and Jimmy Page first meet? Because I was talking to Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon the other day, and he started telling me this story about I was on a plane or on a bus with David, and he was schooling me on all things Jimmy Page and about the Kinks and about the studio work. And where did you first meet him?
Well, first off, that's news to me. But Jimmy and I were with Purple and Zeppelin until Zeppelin just became so over the top. You know, we had this kind of rivalry of attendance. But pretty much in the States, the Zeppelin obviously owned the fucking roost and we owned Europe. But there was constantly this kind of little niggling. Oh, we sold 50,000 tickets of the Orange Bowl Miami. Oh, we just sold 60,000. Oh, we'll go back in and sell 65,000. But at mutual watering holes, that's when Jimmy and I would meet, and we'd often meet at the Rainbow. I was very close with Bonzo. We got on very, very well. And Robert, of all things, until I got really successful. And I still have the greatest respect for him and sincerely hope one day we can buy each other a nice fucking whiskey, which would really be pleasing. But interesting story. 1990, the Liquor and Poker World Tour, it was very obvious that in my personal life was very distracting and not really, was very unsettling and very distracting from what I was doing with my life. And I was so incredibly busy, I had no time for reflection to go, is this what I want or whatever. So I actually, prior to playing 1990 Donington, I'd basically sent my second wife home and filed official separation. I knew it was done. It was over. And really, what I wanted to do, our last show in Tokyo, I gave all my stage clothes and shoes to my wardrobe girl because I knew there was a furnace in the Yogi Olympic swimming pool backstage area in the complex. I said, "Here, burn them." I was so done after 4 years, it wasn't even funny. So I said to all the musicians, I told nobody what was going on personally. I just said I needed to take a break to recharge my batteries and reflect on if I indeed wanted to continue in this three-ring circus with all the acts performing at the same time. And everybody, I said, if you guys get an opportunity for something interesting, please take it. I have no immediate plans, which was absolutely the truth. I wanted to get my private life sorted out. I had a beautiful home in Tahoe where it was a great place for me to go chill and reflect. And that was my plan. Of course, I meet Cindy like 10 days after I get home, who became my partner and my wife and continues to be for 30 years this year. And she was very patient while I went through some very unpleasant legal aspects. And that's when I got a call. I'd called my agent and friend, Rod McSween, currently quarantined in Barbados. Some people have all the joy. And said, don't be calling me with potential work. I'm taking a long breather. I'm not sure I'm going to actually come back and do this. So he went, okay, got it. And then shortly after, he was having dinner with Jimmy Page. And Jimmy was bemoaning he didn't know what to do. He was trying to get back into it and all that kind of stuff. And Rod said, well, what about David Coverdale? He said, well, he's got Whitesnake. He said, no, actually, between you and I, he's put it on ice. And he went, oh, that could be really interesting, because we'd met several times over the years and got really connected nicely. But he's like me. He's really private away from the gregarious performance stuff. So the next thing, I get a call from Jimmy going, are you interested in doing a project? I went, oh, Jimmy, I love your work. I've been a fan since the Yardbirds. And I said, but I'm in a... And I was very forthcoming with him that it was taking a lot of my attention dealing with the legal aspects of divorce. But, if he could be patient, then he had to fly to New York to master that first box set. Do you remember that beautiful Zeppelin box set? I think it was a 4 CD one, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
which had the cornfield cover with a
it was just called the remasters or something, right? The masters or the remasters?
Something like that,
something
yeah.
Like that.
Well, he was flying to master it and stuff like that. So, it would have been rude for me not to have met him halfway. I'm in Tahoe, he's in London. So we agreed to meet in New York. The lawyers were furious because we got on so well. We just said 50-50 across the board. No negotiation. And we shook hands and went. I was staying at the Plaza in those days, and he was at the Ritz-Carlton. So we were within walking distance. So we go out, and it's still cold, so we have overcoats on and scarves. And, of course, we're walking, and we stop traffic, Mitch. Taxis are beeping the horn going, are you guys working together? Oh, my God. It was very, hairs on the back of your neck stuff. And Jimmy and I looked at each other and said, this could be very special. But we just took our time on it, you know. And he was actually at my house working on songs for Coverdale-Page when my lawyers called and said the divorce was made final. So there was significant amount of celebration, as you can see. I treasure the time I worked with Jimmy. He was, and we maintain a super positive support mechanism and friendship. Yeah. It's really cool. We just pick up where we left off when we see each other.
And by the way,
but it wasn't John Kolodner. It was Rod McSween, who was the. I've heard a lot of people taking credit for this, by the way, but it was Rod McSween who thought, "Ooh, they could make a good teaming," and we did.
Well, you did, and I'm going to go off script here for a second, but take me for a little while and take a look at yourself. Are two of the greatest songs in your entire discography. Those songs are just so damn good. I mean, if you could redo those with Joel and Reb and Whitesnakeify them.
Oh, no. I love them. I'd love to remix what we have, you know, as Jimmy and I have discussed it. I've got we have so many outtakes and so many, like evolutions aspects, and I documented the whole making of the project on video. So it's immense, the amount of material we have. But the circumstance is, Take Me For a Little While is the first song I wrote about Cindy. That was first thing in the morning, the last thing at night. Yeah, I adore her. And that was literally the first song I wrote for her. And for the first time, sound like a fucking Frozen. For the first time, I wrote a song from the perspective of two people, meaning my partner Jimmy and I. We'd had so many, through all the conversations we had so many comparisons, Mitch, in our lives. We'd lost so many people close to us, him, you know, with Bonzo, particularly, me with Tommy Bolin and crew, you know. Loss was just almost second nature because of the lifestyle of a lot of the people who we worked with. But I wanted the lyrics on that album to reflect Jimmy's, as if they were, because normally my songs are David Coverdale journals without naming the names. That's what makes me different from country, you see.
But
I don't name names. I know who it is. But the circumstances, Take Me For a Little While, is like the perfect little balance of the Coverdale, Jimmy Page life story lyric.
It's absolutely stunning, and I'm just looking at it. I have like 4 versions of Take Me For a Little While in my playlist. I've got a CHR mix.
The unplugged ones with the girls. Yeah,
the one with the girls. That's my favorite version, by the way, the one with the girls.
Those girls, it was superb treat. It was P.P. Arnold. I don't know whether you remember that name. It was first time I ever saw Keith Emerson was when he was in a group called The Nice. And they backed P.P. Arnold, who had a big hit in England with a Cat Stevens song, Forgive Me, Yusuf, called First Cut Is the Deepest. Beautiful song. And the Chanter Sisters, who I'd worked with on my North Winds album, beautiful girls, Doreen and Irene Chanter, just great singers. So it was P.P. and the Chanter Sister did the background vocals on that song because, you know, it was very soulful song. That's the other thing, by the way, to add to your Restless Heart notes. We've really pulled a lot of the soul out of those songs and amplified it. Very soulful album. I'm really delighted with what we got. Anyway,
I can't wait.
Sorry, Carol. Digressing.
Well, I was just going to say, it is 1:00, and I know I had a hard out at 1:00 because you had to get to another interview, apparently. So why don't we leave it at that? And when, by the way, when does the Restless Heart box set come out? Do we know?
Well, we're probably, everything's moved back. So we're looking probably, I should imagine, I'll obviously keep you informed, but new artwork and everything, it's going to be October, probably 2021, God willing.
2021? Oh, no. That's too far. That's too far.
I'm so sorry. But literally, it hasn't been mastered yet. We work with Scott Hull at Master Disc, who's fantastic. You got to remember that pretty much every industry is upside down. And we have such a super relationship with this fabulous master, Scott Hull, that we wait for his availability. So we're still waiting for the blues album to be mastered. I've delivered both the rock album, obviously June 19th, and October for Whitesnake Love Songs, which is as the president of Rhino said, David, this is an album on its own. It's a standalone album, which was very, very sweet to hear. It's great to work with such incredibly supportive people. We have the same vision. We're on the same journey. And at last, after all these decades, I have a team that seems to be steady in very uncertain times, that I can work very close with and respect deeply and profoundly.
Yeah, and the rock album, by the way, is great. I mean, when you start off at Still of the Night and you finish off at Forevermore, you're hitting all.
It's a hell of a journey, man.
It is.
It's a hell of a fucking journey. I've driven to it. I can only do modest workout. I can't do too much strain stuff, but it's super company. And as we just discussed before, these are set of albums. As much as I love them, and I'm incredibly engaged with them, they are the tasting menu for the forthcoming box sets. I've got a 5-year deal with Warner, so God willing, I'll be able to tour again, health-wise, and that would be. It's so important to me. We discussed before, Mitch. I think for me to be able to make my appropriate express my appreciation and gratitude and my love for the astonishing support my works had from people since almost 50 years. It's mind-blowing. And I'm just doing the best I can to deliver the best we got. And so those, we can repolish those memories. It's lovely for me on social media as we release little bits and pieces, how people are hearing the difference without us stealing any integrity from the original. And the originals are always going to be there, but this was really necessary for me. And I'm thrilled we did it. And I'm thrilled I pursued this dream and fulfilled it. And I can only hope that people who enjoy Whitesnake will continue the journey with us.
I think they will. And to be fair, there's essentially 5 new cuts for a lot of Americans because you've got these 4 from Restless Heart and you've got the one new. So, you're going to rediscover the old ones and you're going to get to hear sort of 5 new ones.
There's 3, I think it's 3, I'm not even sure, but maybe 3 or 4 previously unreleased songs on Love Song, and the new version of Deeper the Love and Is This Love are just a joy for me to hear. It's really exciting and easier said than done, which I think could have been. It's always funny. We've laughed about this before. Oh, my God, if we released this in 88, 89, it would have been a certified global hit or whatever. So let's have it as a certified global hit now, baby.
Yeah, we can. And on that, thank
Mitchell,
you, sir. Toujours un
thank
plaisir.
you with all my heart. No, thank you, my darling. Send my love to Carol.
Will do.
And
Alan.
Yeah, and good luck with everything, and Alan, and stay safe, and all your listeners and readers, and I'm going to get into the shower and get back to the studio.
Yeah, make more music, please. And I'm going to go talk to Dee Snider now.
It's impossible. Oh, good. All my best. Oh, wait, are you speaking to Steve Gorman today?
Yes, I've got Dee Snider next and Steve next. I will absolutely do that.
Send my love. Steve and I connected at a dinner for Jimmy Page, and it was we never shut up talking together. He wanted me to, because he had that sports show for a time, and I'm going, I don't know anything about fucking sports. And he's going, no, you're going to come on, because we connected so well. So please send my love. He's a super guy.
Absolutely.
And I hope everything is healthy and good. All right, brother.
Merci. Bonsoir. À la prochaine. Bye-bye now.
Darling. Merci bien. God bless.
Bye-bye.
This has been Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Whitesnake, the rock album, on CD, digital, and 180-gram limited edition double LP white vinyl, available June 19th. Pre-order now at whitesnake.com. And don't forget to tweet at David Coverdale that you loved him on Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. For more exclusive content and interviews, follow Mitch Lafon on Twitter at Mitch Lafon, and subscribe to Rock Talk on iHeartRadio and Spotify.